Time magazine crowned you the body. You were on the cover of Vogue, Vanity Fair, and yet things still came crashing down around you. You were diagnosed with cancer, you suffered from alcoholism, you've gone through a divorce. For so many women who think it's just too late for them, how on earth can they start to reinvent themselves and pick themselves back up just like you did?
It's a series of connecting to your heart at every given moment and recognizing that we are not powerless. And that's the thing that we've been conditioned to believe, is that we are powerless, that we're dealt certain cards in life, but we have choice. We have free will and we have choice at every given time. And life is meaningful and it's purposeful and it's valuable if you choose to learn from it. I love that saying where they say, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah,
one bite at a time.
Yeah.
And life is like that. We create all our experiences through what we think and what we feel. Mm-hmm. I always love that saying, which is what we think, what we feel, we make real. So whatever you focus on is what you're going to get more of in life. Yeah. And that is universal. That is a universal wisdom. So focus on what you love, on what you want for yourself, your dreams, what truly moves you. And therein lies the secret to living a fulfilled and happy, joyful life. Not always easy, but worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's not easy is the point that I really want to kind of lean into. So I want to start with your career.
Right.
And the things that you had to do and fight for in order to be where you are today, where a lot of women don't feel like they have a voice, they don't fight for what they want, they don't feel like they're powerful, they don't feel like they can ask for something. And so what ends up happening is you blink, 10 years later, you don't have the life you want. So one of the stories you tell in the book, so you're just starting to model, you're young, you don't really know what you're doing, it's early days, and you're standing in front of a photographer. And he turns around and he says to you, how can I shoot beauty with a girl with brown eyes? So take me back to that moment when someone can be so disrespectful to you in front of your face. How on earth do you have the resilience to get through that and use it as strength?
You have a choice. Either you're going to be crippled by it and heartbroken, which was not my case. I was just like, well, I better see, I've got to do the best job I can with what I've got. And so that was really important to me, to be excellent at whatever I did. I gave it 110%. I gave it my best. I didn't necessarily like the modeling part. Like, that part was hard. And I felt insecure about the way I looked. But really what I wanted is I wanted what modeling gave me, which was independence, financial freedom, choice. I wanted the experiences that modeling gave me. Keep your focus on what you want, not what you don't want.
Or how you feel. Because I think in that moment, a lot of women would allow their feelings to take the reins and control it. So, but you actually said, but then you did leave. So do you mind explaining what happened and what you said when you left? Because this is really powerful, because I actually think this is almost a slight sign. You talk about it in your book, but you don't necessarily use these words, but like almost like a self-sabotage.
And I have been in my life what I call unself-loving and self-damaging at times, just through not using the tools and trust in myself, right? So not trusting myself. So in that particular situation, I got an offer that was with Bilyeu. He said, I'm leaving, I'm taking my plane. And I was working with Whitney Houston, by the way, on this, and Christy Brinkley on this job. And he said, I'm leaving early. I'm leaving, the day after tomorrow, whenever it was. And he said, do you want to come back with me at the same, do you want to fly back with me? And so I just thought to myself, oh yeah, that sounds good. I'll get on a private plane and I'll leave. And the photographer doesn't seem to want me here anyway. So, and this was one of my first jobs. And so I just got up and left. And when I got back, my agent at the time, she just said, Elle, you can't do that. You just can't let the team down. You can't let yourself down. You can't just leave and make your own rules. And that was such a sobering time for me, because I realized, wow, that sort of whimsical decision just because I felt like somebody didn't like me really was not helpful. And it wasn't self-sabotaging because I learned from it. You know, I took the takeaway and I thought to myself, I'm never going to let somebody's opinion of me dictate the way I behave, which meant that I was unprofessional by leaving, I was unreliable by leaving, I was self-centered by leaving. If I'd continued like that throughout my career, I wouldn't have a career that is now going on, 45 years.
That's amazing. Well, so here's the thing. I think it could have been a self-sabotage act if you didn't learn from it.
Absolutely.
And that's what I actually love. That's why I really wanted to talk about this story, because I can actually imagine that feels really empowering to be like, oh, I'm going to make a decision.
Yeah.
If you didn't then learn from it and go, wow, okay, I should have stayed. I let the team down. You may have learned a different lesson.
Yeah, well, there's no mistakes in life as long as you learn. And you're going to learn either way. You know, it doesn't really matter what you do. It's making sure that you learn from it. Even if you learn, I let myself down, you know. It doesn't mean you have to navigate everything perfectly. We make choices and then we see what works and what doesn't work. It's sort of like a trial and error thing. Oh, that didn't work so well. Let me try something new, you know. And I think that's the only self-damaging thing that we can do in life, truly do, is to not learn from our experiences. And that doesn't mean being a good girl or doing it right or doing what everybody else says. Learn what there is in that given moment, what is relevant for you at that given moment.
If this episode or any other Women of Impact episode is bringing you value, please smash that subscribe button down below, because you have no idea how much that becomes a calling card to all women out there that this is the place, this is the community to be a part of, because we've got each other's backs. So smash that subscribe button. Thanks for listening. Now back to the episode. How in that given moment then are you able to learn the lesson without putting emotion around it? Because I think sometimes when you have that failure, the emotion of I am a failure really hits home. And then when you start to think that, you start to kind of spiral in the shame of, well, I don't want anyone to find out. And then all of that becomes this concoction where you never then try something again.
Yeah, therein lies the quandary. And I go back to this concept of what you focus on is what you get in life. So if you're constantly saying you're a failure, then your life will conspire to show you that you are. But if you can say, okay, I was inexperienced, next time I'm not going to make that decision. I'll make a different decision. And the concept of learning is really, truly, or the concept of wisdom even, is just the application of the learning in your life. So you can't say, I learned it in my head. It's like I learn it and I show the universe that I've learned it by behaving or responding differently the next time. Otherwise, it starts to hurt.
Yeah, God. And the thing you also talk about a lot is really getting to understand yourself. And you talk about the 4 A's being approval, agreement, acceptance, or allegiance. So talk to me about those 4 A's and how you use them as useful tools in either making decisions or thinking about what you want to do next.
Well, those 4 A's are the things that if you find yourself in any of those, am I doing this because I want approval? Am I doing this because I want acceptance? Am I doing this because I want allegiance? Then that is you're looking outside yourself for an authority outside yourself to justify whatever you're doing. So you're doing it for somebody else, basically. It doesn't resonate with who you are truly within you. And so I often think about, you know, in anything I do, anything I say to somebody, I will say to myself, am I saying this because I want their approval, because I want their love, because I want their acceptance, because I want their attention? Or am I saying this because it really rings true to me right here, right now? And I think that's a really good exercise. It's been super helpful for me in life, so that I'm making sure that I'm acting in alignment with my true heart.
So when you're in alignment with your true heart, is that when you're able to make decisions with more confidence? And what I mean by that is, in hearing your story in your career, like you trusted your gut quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women don't trust their gut. It's taken me probably, when I was around 35, I was like, I feel like I've got a superpower that I haven't been using. Like I've literally shut
Good
off,
for you.
and a lot of women have been shutting that off.
Yeah.
But every time there's certain stories in your book where you're just like, yeah, everyone was telling me to do this, but I just trusted my gut, and so I did this instead. So one of the things in modeling was everyone was like saving themselves for like the big deals, and you're like, I just want to pay my bills. It doesn't make sense that I'm not taking these smaller gigs. So how do you start to trust your gut, even when people are telling you that it may not be the right thing? Because going against the grain can be very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is uncomfortable to go against the grain, but it's even more uncomfortable to go against yourself. And that's my experience. So how do you learn to trust yourself? Well, first of all, you have to foster a relationship with your heart. And so the way I did it was to get very quiet and to listen to those inner urges. You know, those like sort of inklings of something within you that says, I think I'm going to take a step towards this, or I don't think that feels right for me. And we all have intuition. You know, our heart is our compass. It will never, ever, ever lead us astray. So to trust it, but trust is like a friendship. So it's, you know, if you have a friend and you speak to them once in a blue moon and you have kind of a lightweight conversation with them every now and then, and you call them with a big issue, are you really going to trust, you know, what they have to say about it? So you have to build that relationship with yourself. And you do that through stop, listen, relax, and then act on what you feel is right for you at any given moment. It's a practice.
Yeah. Do you journal at all with how your gut's
Well,
feeling?
I have since I was so thankful for some of my journals because they were the foundation of a lot of the chapters of the book. I was able to really lift almost directly from the journals into the book. So because they were so full of the emotions of the moment and the details of the experiences of the moment. So I think writing is a wonderful way to track also your progress and to remind yourself of the things that you were so worried about 2 months ago or 3 months ago or 6 months ago are not relevant today. Sometimes it's what's in our head. It's the fear of the future that really keeps us stuck. And a lot of the things that we're afraid of don't actually happen in life. And I talk about that a lot in the book. So how to recognize your inner sense and the difference between inner sense and common sense. And common sense is really just the talk that your head has. It's a wonderful administrator. You know, it's the head is really great to figure out how to do things, but it's really from the heart, your true essence will guide you on what to do. And then you use your head to figure out how to do it. And it sounds simple, but it does take practice.
I mean, in just what you've broken down already, understanding how you've become so freaking successful is literally in your head, right? It's the decisions that you've made. It's the way that you think. It's the perspective that you have. And I freaking admire it. Like, it's so empowering.
Well, it's the heartfelt decisions that I've made. And it's then the application of using my skill set to bring them to life. It's not necessarily what I think is such a good idea. It's what I feel. There's a big difference between thinking and feeling. I'll give you an example. I was offered to come to America. Forward Face of the 80s called me up and said, that was a competition in the 80s, you know, will you come to America and be a model? And we'd like to represent you and you can enter into this competition. And when I heard that American accent on the phone, it was one of those sort of like wall phones that you have in a kitchen.
Day,
I can remember it was like olive green or burgundy or something like that with the cord that goes around. And I heard the voice and I heard what she was saying and my heart skipped a beat. I thought, wow, what a fabulous opportunity. Like, go to New York. I'm in Sydney, Australia. I was going to go to law school. I thought, oh, this would be so great. And then, you know, my head starts going in and like, oh, wait a second, smart girls don't fall for this. I'm going to law school. Oh, that's not very secure. Oh, what happens if I fail? Everybody's going to laugh at me. Oh, it's not real. You know, they're fake. Maybe this is a scam. And so my head started coming in and hijacking the circumstances. And when I spoke to her, I said, no, I'm not interested, thanks. And I hung up the phone and I felt sick to my stomach, physically sick. and I ran to the bathroom and I vomited. That's how the emotions of that sort of going against myself, that's what it felt like for me. I felt physically sick. And I vowed right then and there I would never go against that inner excitement, that inner knowing, that inner spark again. And so fortunately, a few months later, another agency called and said, we've seen pictures of you and we'd really like you to come to America. And of course I said yes immediately.
Yeah.
And I felt so uplifted. Yes, I was nervous and, you know, there was a lot of trepidation because I'd never been away from home. I'd never been on an airplane overseas. I didn't know where I was going to. I had no money. I had very little experience. But I trusted that spark that I felt inside my heart when she mentioned, why don't you come to America? And that is using my heart as a compass. That was a sign when you feel that thing inside that inspires you or excites you or moves you towards something. Listen to it. It's so valuable.
That's such an amazing story. I love that you opened the book with that as well, by the way, because it really is one of those moments where if they never called you back the second time, or the other company.
Yeah, I would have gone off and gone to law school and probably had a really incredible life doing other things. So it's not like we have missed opportunities and we'll never get them back, because we will always learn. We will always grow. We will always find joy in our life, no matter what we do. It's not reliant on the circumstances. It is dependent on how we live our life, no matter what we're doing.
Yeah, and I'm going to be very honest and transparent, because I always am. Growing up, so I'm 45, growing up, I very much knew who you were. I mean, it was like your face was everywhere, and being 5'1", being bullied and teased for my looks. I had the unibrow, I had braces, I had the head brace. You couldn't imagine a worse scenario for a young girl to grow up in.
Right.
And so I absolutely dismissed you in the sense of, she's beautiful, she's got everything she needs.
Yeah.
And that was why, obviously, in my own growth as an adult now, knowing way more about human nature, that's never the case. No one is ever perfect. No one ever has a great, perfect story. And so what you've had to overcome, the decisions you've made, and everything has had this knock-on and stepping stone effect.
But you too. So, for example, unibrow, braces, bullied at school. And what did you turn that into? This incredible podcast where you're here looking beautiful, helping other women. So if you hadn't have been through those experiences that you'd had as a child and learned to overcome it the way you did and to learn through it, you wouldn't be sitting here today. And so, we all have, life presents us with beautiful opportunities to get to know ourselves and to evolve and to grow and to live our heart's dreams. We just forget. We just think we're stuck.
Just want to let that sit for a second. Thank you. Thank you for that. The reason why I really wanted to bring up my story, though, was to really echo how much you really have gone through in your life and the decisions that you've made. And I am heartbroken when I live in a world and I meet women where they're just not living out their lives. They're not doing the things that they really want to do because of expectations, because of family pressure, toxic relationships, disbelief in themselves. And so your story and your message is really important. But now I want to go on to the love, if you don't mind, and relationships, because going back to the confidence part, girl, I've met some, including you, insanely successful women, insanely successful.
Yeah.
And yet behind the scenes, every time it's just like girls talk and there's no cameras and we're in our pajamas and we're just hanging out. The thing that can dent women's confidence more than I've ever seen ever in anything else is a bad relationship. And I have seen women's confidence been knocked time and time again from a bad relationship. And I've got a very powerful quote of yours that you say in the book. Love and control cannot coexist.
True. Love and control can't coexist because love actually means allowance. So I allow the circumstances to be as they are. I allow him to be him, and I allow me to be me. And I think sometimes with people in general, we tend to fall in love with the potential of somebody. Like you see, oh yeah, he could be, you see this sort of the potential of the relationship, the potential of the person, the potential of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And we get sort of caught up in that without really looking at what's going on in the here and now. I've experienced that in love, we don't actually fall in love. We rise in loving consciousness. And we fall in love with the woman that we are or the person that we are in that relationship. We fall in love with ourselves. I like the way I am when I'm around you. I feel confident and comfortable with who I am when I'm around you. And if that's the situation, that's a relationship to keep fostering. But if you're in a relationship with somebody, or this has been my experience when I've been in a relationship with somebody, that I actually don't like who I am when I'm around them, that's something to watch out for. Listen to that inner sense again. I don't feel good when I don't feel I'm being me when I'm with this person. And I'm not letting him be himself because I want to change him. I want him to be different. I want, it'll be better when we just get that house. It'll be better, when we just get married, or if he would just lose a little bit of weight, or there's so many things that we want to sort of control the other person, and we want to control ourselves. And that's not love at all.
Coming up. All right, now in your 60s, what love lessons do you wish you had learnt sooner? When you're busy working and trying to take care of the family and trying to take care of the kids and trying to take care of your team and be there for your friends and on and on and on, it can be so overwhelming to try and think about and figure out what on earth you're going to eat so that you don't get hangry or so you don't get bloated. I used to literally carry around bacon strips in a Ziploc bag because it was the only thing that I could actually eat while working at my desk and actually giving myself the nutrients that I needed and the stamina, like the protein. But I then discovered these bad boys right here, Paleo Valley beef sticks. They've got no soy, they've got no gluten, they've got no crap in them, and I can eat them now without actually getting a stomachache, which means that I can actually focus on my content and I can focus on my job and I can focus on being an amazing wife and an amazing mummy. So guys, trust me when I say you're gonna wanna check out freaking Paleo Valley beef sticks. They are insanely good and they come in 5 flavors. Make sure to click the link in the show notes and take advantage of this special offer of 30 beef sticks for $36. But it's only through my link, so head to the show notes and click that link, my homie. Did you notice then, when you said you didn't like yourself, did you notice a change in your behavior?
Yeah. I mean, often. It's taken me a long time to get to know myself and to be 100% myself in a relationship, warts and all.
Yeah.
And I feel that years of modeling conditioned me to live up to other people's expectations of me. I was paid to do it. Bitch girl, yep, I can do that. Runway girl, yep, that's me. Corporate woman, yeah, I'm corporate woman. Corporate wife, I can do that. And I was paid to do it. So along the way, it's quite easy to lose a sense of who you are, or not even have the time to figure out who you are along the way. And then we bring that into relationships. So we acquiesce to things that don't resonate with us just because we don't want conflict. We want to avoid conflict. We want to avoid turmoil. We're afraid to speak our truth. And I have been in all those experiences, and I go into it in quite a lot of depth in the book. And I've grown through those experiences. I'm deeply grateful for those experiences. In fact, there's one chapter of where I talk about marriage to one of my husbands. And I realized that through that, rather than being bitter and twisted about the fact that we separated, I realized that he was never truly there to love me. He was there to teach me to love myself. And that's what I learned. That was my takeaway from that marriage, was like, I learned to allow myself, to be myself, to respect myself in that relationship. And that was the biggest gift he gave me.
Which is a wonderful gift. I think a lot of the time relationships do the opposite. If you're with the wrong person, where they don't want you to be yourself. They're trying to mold you, control you, change you. And you actually say in your book where, I'm sorry, I don't remember which marriage it is, but you, apologies.
That says a lot.
I didn't mean it like that. But you say that when you broke up with him, you didn't know who you were. You didn't even know what food that you liked to eat.
Yeah.
How many of us lose ourselves in those relationships? And then if you don't mind talking to me about losing yourself in that relationship and then rediscovering yourself and figuring out your own identity.
Well, I think we lose ourselves in that relationship because we lose the relationship with ourselves. So we prioritize other people's needs and desires and dreams over our own. And we're not connected to ourselves. It's not their fault. So often it's like, oh, he was the wrong guy for me. No, I was the wrong girl for me in that moment. I was not being true to me. I didn't take the time to check in with what I want to do or how I feel about things. Or, you know, we so often mold ourselves into, as I said, you know, what we think is sort of palatable or pretty or what we wish we were. And so I believe relationships are just a mirror for the relationship that we have with ourselves. If there's dissonance in the relationship, there's dissonance within you. If there's unkindness in the relationship, you're being unkind to you. And it's just a reflection. Our relationships are a reflection of our inner well-being.
That's so powerful and true. That there's so much self-ownership here. There's so much reflection of how do I show up? And
for me.
Yeah, yeah. Right. And I think, unfortunately, and I'm not sure even where it comes from. I think it's probably different for everybody, but it's a little easier. And I actually mean this in a sweet way, I guess. It's a little easier to play the victim. It's a little easier to say he was the wrong guy than it is to say I was the wrong woman in that relationship. And the relationship I was giving to myself was wrong.
But then it's a little bit about judgment as he's wrong and I'm wrong. And there is no wrong. You know, he was the guy that I chose for me to learn these powerful lessons in my life. Thank you. Thank you for being that willing partner and teaching me that actually it doesn't work for me, A, B, C, D, E, and F, whatever they are. So we make those decisions for us to learn. There's no wrong in it, as long as we take some stock and say, well, what did I find out about myself in that relationship?
Do you mind sharing the dolphin tattoo story? And I would love to know what you learned out of that.
Yeah, that was interesting. So I was married, and I was married very young. I got married when I was 21, and that was a sort of rebellion card in a way. I wanted to be my own woman, and I wanted to have my own family, and I married somebody who was 21 years older than me, who I adored. And we had a fantastic working relationship together, and I found him so charismatic and interesting, and I learned so much with him, and I looked up to him, and he wanted to get married. And I thought, yeah, everybody said I shouldn't, but I'm going to. And we had a beautiful relationship for quite some time. We worked together, we played together, we traveled together, we grew together. And I remember towards the end of the relationship, I was thinking, you know, we're not aligned right now. Like, he wants to travel more, and I want to grow my business independently from him. And we were not really seeing eye to eye on things, and it just didn't feel right. And something about his behavior didn't feel right. And then I remember showing up at a job and seeing a girl who I knew he worked with a lot. And
this is a modeling job?
A model, yeah, a modeling job. And this was another model who he worked with often. And I'd always had that thing in my stomach that was beyond, it wasn't really jealousy. It was just like, that's interesting. He's always working with that one girl. And then she showed up and she had the same dolphin tattoo on her ankle as he has on his arm. And I just knew. I was like, man, They're spending a lot more time together than just shooting. And it was a sign for me to just say, do you know what? This story's done. And I sort of picked up myself and I moved out, and I don't even know how I got the strength to do it, but I did. And I'm grateful that I did, because it opened up the doors to so much more in my life. And it was just time. And so instead of looking back and saying, I'm the victim of this circumstance, he had a relationship, poor me, I just went, wow, this is, in hindsight, I looked back and I said, wow, thank goodness that happened, because it gave me a platform for me to stand on my own 2 feet. I was ready. And as I say in the book, you know, I'm grateful to him for leaving me when he knew I was strong enough to walk alone. And that is my truth in that. And I proved that to myself.
Yeah. Everything feels easier in hindsight, right? Whereas like you look back, there's
2020 vision is brilliant in hindsight.
Oh, it's so easy, right? So it's like, oh, that's why I went through that. But when you're going through it, it feels so crappy.
Yeah.
So with that moment of like, oh, thank God that happened, because now you were able to be free and have your own life and really kind of lead the life that you wanted. But in the moment, were you heartbroken?
Absolutely.
How did you then not make it about you? Because I think so many of us do.
Well, I probably did at the time, but, you know, if you stay stuck in bitterness and resentment and victimhood, that's what you're going to get more of in life. And so pain is inevitable, but suffering, hanging on to that pain is optional. We don't have to hang on to that. And I realized that if I sort of stayed catatonic and desperate and angry, I was not going to get, I couldn't move. You know, it was so debilitating. And so that sort of grit and determination and persistence and discipline got me through, and the courage that I had to say, okay, I'm going to fill my life with things that really resonate with me. I have a choice. I can sit here in my closet and cry, and I did a bit of that, quite a lot of that, or I can get out and use that energy, transmute that pain, alchemize that pain, and get out and make a life for myself. And so I put all that kind of anger, energy, because we are just energy beings and frequency. We're like a river of energy. Instead of directing that river towards all the disappointment, I directed that river to, what can I create? And that's when I started my lingerie business, or really dove into my lingerie business. It was already started, but I took it either. And we have that power. We are all powerful beings. We have free will. We have choice. It's just practicing those choices along the way. And then when you start practicing those choices, when I say choices, choice not to stay in suffering, use that energy in creation. When we do that often enough, we have so much more confidence, because we go, well, I remember I did that, but I felt like this, but I did that. I felt like this, but I did that. I felt like this, but I did that. And when you exercise that in your life, you can see it wasn't so scary. It wasn't so bad. And look what happened. And, you know, take that first step towards your dreams and watch the magical things unfold. And we all have the power to do that. We all have it within us.
I love the idea of the energy, and you actually say, like, there's 3 energies in a relationship: your energy, their energy, and then the energy of the relationship.
Yeah.
So is that where if you come in with great energy and they don't, it will never work? If you come in without great energy and you haven't worked on yourself and you haven't done that internal work, and you bring bad energy to a relationship, it will always have that friction.
Well, I don't think any relationship is just good energy or bad energy. I think we have good days and bad days, or, you know, easy, flowful days and some difficult days. But the difficulties don't mean that it's not helpful. It's not valuable or worthwhile. And the exciting things that happen in life, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be like that either. So I think it's truly about feeling. Do you feel resonant and aligned with the person that you're with when you first meet them? Do you get that thing in your stomach going, oh, I don't know about this. This doesn't feel right, but you do it anyway. Well, you will learn. You know, when you go against yourself, it becomes painful. And I remember thinking with the father of my children, when I first met him, I had that feeling in my stomach. I remember going in a taxi downtown, and I was like, this is going to be a wild ride. Like, I just feel it. This is going to be so rock and roll wild. I'm not sure if I'm ready for this. And then at that moment I went like, I'm going to give it a go. But I knew, and it was a wild ride for sure. I had 2 beautiful sons, incredible boys, and I have a beautiful relationship with the father of my children today. But I do remember hearing that little voice inside going, are you ready for this? Are you ready for change? Are you ready to be, you know, to be challenged in some ways? And I did.
It's that gut instinct again, right?
Yeah.
That gut just trying to tell you something.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean not do it. It just means listen to your inner sense.
All right, now in your 60s, what love lessons do you wish you had learnt sooner?
I don't feel that I truly understood love until now. And I thought there was a lot of box ticking. You know, he's really successful in what he does. He likes the same things as I do. Oh, he has his children the same age as me. Oh, we both like hiking in the morning. We're both, you know, so there's all that sort of box ticking where it looks good on paper. But when you're living the relationship between the two of you, there's no harmony and peace and alignment. That's when it can be really difficult. And every relationship is there to teach you. And you can learn the easy way or you can learn the hard way, but as long as you learn, that's all that matters. And every relationship that I've had, I've learned a lot about myself through those relationships. And there's been good times, you know, joyful times and not so joyful times, but it's always been worthwhile.
How do you think about then attraction versus connection?
That's a huge one. Thank you for bringing that up, because sometimes I feel that we are attracted to somebody. We like the way they look, we like their job, we like what they say to us, we like their car, we like the way they dress. You know, you get the hots for them. You feel, oh, you know, he just totally rocks my world. And that's attraction. But connection is so much deeper and much more long-lasting. I mean, you have connection with your husband. You've been together for 24 years. You would not be together if you did not have a soul connection that went beyond all the other outside things. And that's what is so important. That has longevity. It has the opportunity to bring great joy, fulfillment. It's a true connection.
Yeah, I love the way you define those. And the one thing that when I first got with my husband is like, aging is inevitable. Like sometimes I think women fear aging. Right. And I'm just going to speak for myself. I think of it as you've got 2 choices. You age or you die.
True. But the beauty isn't this thing. The beauty comes from your heart. It's who you are as a being. And we all are beautiful. So it's not that skin deep thing. It is soul deep. And we talk a lot about this with Wellco, my wellness brand, is that beauty is an essence that emanates from you. And it's a sense of vitality. It's a sense of charisma. It's a sense of kindness. It's a sense of assuredness, confidence. And in a relationship, the idea of, you know, longevity in a relationship or longevity in life, it's not the years in your life, it's the life in your years. So it's how are you being at every given moment? You know, retain that childlike curiosity, be interested, listen, be willing to play. All those things make people charismatic. I mean, there are actors that are not particularly beautiful or actresses that are not particularly beautiful, but you're so drawn to them. They're so charismatic. If you think of Serge Gainsbourg, he was a French singer, and he was, you know, he had missing teeth. He was sort of like, he had a face that traditionally people would not think was very beautiful, but he had the most beautiful women. He went out with Brigitte Bardot and he went out with Jane Birkin. And these beautiful women were attracted to him, but they were attracted to who he was. And they found him attractive, beautiful. They found a connection with him. So to focus on that true essence, that true inner beauty, is how you navigate that fear of whether you have wrinkles or whether your skin changes or whether the shape of your body changes. It's about, how does that person feel when they're with you? Do they feel seen, heard, loved, respected, valued? That is what people are looking for.
Don't you also think confidence in someone,
yes,
like, that it's just so attractive? And maybe that's the guy where he's just so confident that people are attracted to him. But I just think as you talk about like the difference between attraction and connection, if people think of attraction as being very surface, you'll always be disappointed, like always, because if you're with that person for longer than a few months, people change.
Yeah.
And so if there's a way even to find the attraction and the connection, right? So like I'm attracted to the connection that me and my husband have.
Yeah.
And so now it can sustain the test of time, because it doesn't matter how old
That's
we are.
beautiful.
I was 22 years old when I got married. So thinking about, I want to be married to him until I take my last breath, which hopefully till I'm over 100, which means you better believe at 90, my boobs are going to be a little saggy and like I'm going to have aged. But if I'm always focused on being attracted to the connection we have, you can see that we can sustain that in our 80s and 90s
Absolutely.
and beyond.
And it's about evolution and being flexible. You know, not so much that you're compromising yourself, but being flexible. Things change. You know, your partner may decide that they want to make a career change. Flexibility is so important in a relationship, allowing them to do what moves them, as long as it doesn't compromise who you are or, you know, hurt you in any way. You may not agree with it. It may not be your first choice, but to allow them their journey. And I think there have been times in my relationships where I had a preconceived idea of who I thought they were going to be, and they better live up to that, because if not, I was going to be disappointed. And if I was disappointed, then I was going to be miserable. And then if I was going to be miserable, I'd have to leave. And if I have to leave, then what am I going to do? So it's that connection, that soul connection is so important.
And so now, having gone through those experiences, and you've done a lot of work on yourself, how do you think about love?
This book is really a book about love. It's my journey from my head to my heart. And that has been a lifelong journey. And my son, when he read it, he said, "Mama, this is really a love story. Love of life, love of myself, love of others." And I feel that love is not confined to a romantic partner necessarily. It is an active being in everything that we do every day. Our life is about love. How do we bring much more loving consciousness into our life? And that's what we're here to do. Be love, feel love, express love in all ways, shapes and forms, in all circumstances, not just romantic love.
I love that. And you spoke about evolution, like really kind of evolving. And so I'd love, if you don't mind now, to talk about your alcoholism, because I think that I've never had that issue, but it's so relatable. Whether it's alcoholism or something else, you end up kind of caught in this cycle.
Right.
And as you're in that cycle, you end up giving yourself potential excuses of why you're there. And so I think that can be part of the trap. So I'd love the takeaways and how you were able to look at your alcoholism, say that it wasn't serving you, and then work to, make sure that you never touch a drop again, is very powerful in the journey you took and the steps that I think anyone can do wherever they're stuck in anything. And so I'd love to actually start with how you talk about the excuse. So being a Brit, I totally understand where you're like, well, you just say, I'm an Aussie, we drink. Talk to me about the power of excuses, and then how you start to realize it's actually an excuse.
I believe that anything that we do repetitively that harms us is an addiction. So it's almost like you're addicted to harming yourself. Doesn't matter what flavor it takes. And it can be behavioral. It can be drugs and alcohol. It can also be relationships. It could be ways of thinking. I'm shit, I'm shit, I'm shit. Everything I do turns to shit. I'm afraid. I can't do this. Like there is as much addiction to people being attached to those belief systems that are disempowering in their life, and they just do it over and over and over and over again. And sure enough, their life presents exactly what they keep thinking. You know, what you think, what you feel, you make real. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was a slow realization. It wasn't like I had a little insight like, I seem to be able to drink more vodka than everybody else. That's kind of interesting. Or that's funny, sometimes I drink and I'm totally fine, and sometimes I drink and I can't remember what I did. So I had little signs along the way, but I was never sort of a fall down, messy drunk, and people said to me, you've really got a problem, you've got to get yourself to rehab. I just realized along the way, with the help of a therapist, that I wasn't truly present in my life. And I wanted to be a good mom. You know, I wanted to be the best mom I could be, and I was not being the best mom I could be if I wasn't showing up present. And when I say present, I showed up. I was up at 6 a.m, feeding the kids and getting them dressed for school and taking them to school and taking them to run and do the house, blah, 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 blah. I showed up, but I wasn't really present. I wasn't present in the sense that I wasn't connected to myself. I was using alcohol to numb feelings of insecurity, feelings of not knowing, not knowing how to handle situations, wanting to be a good mum, not knowing how. And then that was really painful for me, not knowing how to play with my children. And so I just, I don't want to think about that, so I'll just have a few drinks. I feel fine. And so it was a very slow unraveling of being empowered in my life and living the life that I wanted to live, just simply put. And I needed help. So I went to rehab, and then I have been committed to going to AA meetings because I wanted to. I wanted support, and I found incredible support through AA and through staying sober. I'm 21 years sober now.
That's amazing.
I know, thank goodness.
Holy shit,
it's easy for me to remember because I have a 21-year-old son, and I got sober when he was born, just after he was born. And it was extremely important for me to stop the cycle of addiction. And somebody said something to me once. They said, Elle, I said, look, everything's perfect in my life, really. I mean, nobody ever says to me, you drink too much. I haven't lost anything. I haven't lost my looks. I haven't lost my husband. I haven't lost money. I haven't lost my home, which a lot of people do through alcoholism. And the guy just said to me, you don't have to hit rock bottom. You can get off on the 4th floor. You don't have to go to the ground floor. And that was so sobering to me. I thought, you know what? None of those things have happened to me yet. But the way I'm going, they could. And it doesn't have to be like that. I can just get help. And that's what I did.
Was there any debate on whether you should get help or not? Because I'm just projecting or predicting, and I don't know if this is true, so please correct me. I just think like, okay, well, you're famous. Everyone knows your name. Everyone knows who you are. Even if no one knows you, you'll worry, oh my God, what if Jane down the road finds out that I've gone to rehab, right? Like everyone's
What if Jane down the road finds out that I sit at home drinking by myself,
don't we worry?
Vomiting?
Don't we worry about that shit? Like it's literally like your neighbor or your uncle's cousin who's going to find out.
Yeah.
And so now I just think of even more pressure that the entire world knows your name. Was there any debate of whether you should or not go to rehab? And the reason, great, okay.
No, I was not thinking about what other people thought of me at that time. I was thinking about what I thought of me and how I was showing up in my life. And I think at that point when you're really looking for help, where the difference was that for a while I thought that it was outside of me. So I was a victim of my circumstances. Oh, you would drink if you had that. You would drink if this happened to you. You would drink if, And when I realized that there was nothing outside going on in my life that had more power than what was going on within me, the realization of what was going on within me, that I had the power to make change. It wasn't for the people around me to change. Oh, if he was just a bit nicer to me, I wouldn't drink so much. No, if I didn't drink so much, maybe he'd be a bit nicer too.
Or maybe you'd walk away and not accept it.
Exactly. That wasn't my case, but you know, that is a case that I hear from people. And so no shame in getting sober at all. And in fact, I celebrate every day. I am so grateful that I had the courage and the willingness to take the steps. And it was relatively easy over time. You know, much easier than, you know, drinking myself to a stupor.
Oh, yeah. Also, have you heard the phrase like choose your hard, right? Where it's like everything's going to be hard, so just choose which hard you want. One of the reasons why I asked is that I know that can be a sticking point for a lot of people, is the judgment and the shame or the feeling around. Yeah, because I know some people, not about actually drinking, but it made me think some people still have stigma around therapy. And so I knew somebody that was really struggling, and I was like, look, I've got access to a lot of people. Like, I will help you go and seek therapy. And they were like, no, they were just so adamant. And I went back to, it must be a belief system they have about what this means about them.
Well, I think people are afraid of change. So they're quite happy in what they know. I'll keep this circumstance because I know. I know how to deal with this. I don't know how to deal with what could happen when things change. And so I'd rather sit in the uncomfortability of the known than step outside of my comfort zones into the unknown. And so, you know, people say stuck because they'd rather, better the devil you know.
Yeah, exactly. What I find super fascinating about your book, I mean, you share so many stories, like I've said, but there's stories that you really do just own. And in the power of those really hard stories to read, I think is such an incredible message. And when you talk about your alcoholism, there is one story where you say you were so desperate for a drink, you couldn't get the lid off a vodka bottle. So you smash the vodka bottle and you pour yourself a shot and you're like, I'm sure I'm drinking glass, but you just kept drinking.
Care. Yeah, that was a turning point for me. But it was not the turning point of, I'm sure I'm drinking glass. The turning point was my therapist had said to me, see if you can go to Ibiza, because I wanted to go to Ibiza for the summer. See if you can go to Ibiza and not drink. And I'm like, yeah, of course I can. You know, I mean, I've never really tried to not drink, so I'll just not drink. The shock was that once I got in my head that I wanted to drink, nothing was going to stop me. And that's when the penny dropped, was like, wow, this is more powerful than me at this moment. So it had nothing to do with the shards of glass. The reality was, oh my God, she's right. I cannot go this amount of time without drinking. Something's going to trigger me that's going to want me to find relief outside of myself. I don't have any other coping mechanisms that I'm used to using. I have exercised. I only know that coping mechanism. And it saved me. Drinking for a long time saved me, because it saved me from having to feel feelings that were super uncomfortable. It was a great safety net in some ways, really great way to avoid uncomfortable things. And it was a sort of coping mechanism to get through things until it wasn't. And then when it wasn't, it really wasn't.
Yeah. The reason why I really wanted to point that story out is how many of us metaphorically drink the shards of glass.
Right.
And as I was reading it, it did feel universal, because again, like I've drunken many shards of glass, right? Like metaphorically, I absolutely have.
And how did that work for you?
Oh, not great at all.
There you go.
It's like, it's the shit. And I look back in my life. But it becomes those powerful moments.
Yes.
And so with everything we've been discussing today and with your book, you really do have these moments of pillars that can be a signal to just so many women that you don't have to be stuck. And so it really is a book of hope.
Yeah.
And so now I would love to, if you don't mind, talk about your cancer diagnosis. obviously in the media, everyone's trying to make it very clickbaity and extreme.
Right.
But I'd love to hear just from you. Like, that must have been heartbreaking when you get the diagnosis, but the influx of opinions, information, judgment. Oh, you should do this, you should do that. How were you able to come still and make decisions for you?
That's exactly what the chapter is about. How do you find your way, your compass? How do you connect to your heart? How do you make decisions when faced with fear? And in my case, it was a life or death type of situation. It's not always a life or death situation, but it can feel like it when you're in fear. And that whole chapter is not a roadmap of what to do if you get cancer. It's a roadmap of how to make a decision when you're in fear, because when you're in fear, it's very hard to get clarity. When there's turbulence, when there's a lot of noise outside, a lot of opinions outside, a lot of people telling you what you should do, or what they think you should do, you telling yourself what you think you should do. And that chapter is really about how to slow down and to really get in touch with your inner sense and use that inner sense in making decisions. And that's what I had to do in my case, because I did not make a decision in a frivolous way. And I didn't make a decision to make a point. I did an incredible amount of research for the particular type of cancer that I had and the circumstances that I was in. And I researched and I researched. And the most interesting thing was, with everybody that I spoke to, specialists, oncology specialists, heads of hospitals, everybody had a different opinion on what's the best thing to do. And so there were no sure assurances either way, whether I took a natural protocol or whether I took a pharmaceutical protocol. Nobody said, oh, this is going to be 100% cure. You know, you're going to get through this. There were pros and cons on both sides. And when you have all that information on the outside, it's how do you get quiet and figure out what truly feels like it's going to be the best thing for you. And I talk about that, and it's about how to stop, relax, listen, trust your inner sense, and then act upon it, because there's no point going, oh, well, I got that hit on doing something, but then I didn't act on it. So you have to act on it. And then you make decisions as they go along, you know. And that's what I did. And I committed 1,000% to my protocol. And I was fortunate because I was already disciplined from being sober. I was willing. I wanted to live. I wanted the best outcome for myself. I wanted to be a present and loving parent for always. And so I committed 1,000% to, you know, the task at hand, without drama, with care, but without drama.
So many people don't listen to themselves. I mean, I think this has been a very common theme in today's interview and discussion, because people don't go internal. A lot of us women have been trained to just listen to the expert. We listen to the professionals. We listen to all their opinions. We listen to the things that we should do. The fact that you were able to block out that noise and go inwards is tremendous. And I think people need to do what is right for them. But the one thing that's super powerful is you didn't blindly follow. And whatever someone chooses to do, again, that's not my business, but it is important to know that you didn't just blindly follow. And how many of us blindly follow the expert with the title? Now, again, doctors are necessary. I'm not saying that at all. But to your point, you went to how many different people? 30 different people, and they all gave you different opinions. So how the hell do you know what is right for you? I think going inwards is the one thing that you can do, and then never regret.
And never regret, because your heart will never lead you astray. And for me, you know, it was important to research. As I mentioned in my book, I did a spreadsheet of like, okay, I could do this, 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 and this. I could do it this way with this doctor here and da da. I did so much research, and I was so educated, and I listened. I listened to what everybody had to say. And then I took all that information, and then I went inside myself, and then I made a decision based on what felt right. It wasn't just a sort of flippant decision. It was a combination of, research and then really feeling what felt aligned for me based on what I'd learned.
One of the really heartbreaking things that you talk about this, it really hit me when I read it. When you first find out the diagnosis and you're like, I got to tell my kids, I got to tell my husband.
Yeah.
You say, I didn't want to be another burden.
Yeah.
When I read that, I had to read it a couple of times. Like, it was like a knife in the freaking heart, girl. How many of us feel like we're a burden? I'm like, you had cancer and you're saying, but it's such a typical thing
that women
worry,
and people worry, and you don't want people you love to worry, and then they, what are we going to do and how are we going to cope? And I just felt I wanted to sort it all out myself. And in fact, it was a really, powerful way, because I didn't tell anybody. I mean, apart from my kids and my partner at the time, I didn't get caught up in the drama of it. I had a lot on my plate and I just focused on what I had to do. And so there was no room for trying to manage other people's fear. And, fear can be contagious. And I was already like so afraid, and I was confused, and I didn't understand, and I was trying to find out why and how and what do I do about it, and how do I make a decision? How do I implement a decision? What do I do exactly? How did I get this? Why did I get this? We have all those questions, and that in itself is really big stuff. And if you couple that with trying to manage other people's fears around it, it becomes overwhelming. So I decided to keep very quiet and keep very focused on healing, not the drama of the fact, oh my God, she has cancer.
That's very powerful, and I'm sure very hard to do. But it broke my heart in thinking how many of us women feel like we're a burden when it's something that is out of our control. And then how many of us women feel like we have to manage other people's fears and emotions around something. And we really do take on so much weight. It's like, you're already freaking dealing with cancer, homie. And now you're worried about having to deal with other, and understand, right? You're a mother, so you want to be very protective of your kids. So I want to respect that. But just how often do we start to think of everyone else, even when you've been diagnosed with cancer? So it was a very powerful reflection of how we women are and how we respond to things, whether it's cancer or some other really heartbreaking news.
We tend to put the importance on things that are outside ourselves. And it's to become empowered to regain that command of our life by first focusing on your own well-being. Because if you're not well, I mean, when I say well, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally, because wellness isn't just the absence of disease. Wellness is, a sort of balance between your emotional well-being, spiritual and mental and physical well-being. And so we look outside ourselves for joy, love, security, acceptance, and answers. We listen to other people's perspectives on things, and we take them on board as if they're our own. And if somebody outside has an opinion or a feeling or a perspective on things that resonates with you, great. But just make sure it resonates with you.
So for you to really navigate this entire situation with all the information and people telling you everything, it really was just be still and listen to your internal dialogue.
Yeah, I meditated, and I really encourage meditation. And I have a great teacher and life coach who I have worked with for many years, a guy called Paul Darrell Walsh. If you guys are interested, you can check him out online. But the power of meditation is so helpful in life. And it's not just the sort of absence of thoughts, but it's the connection with yourself and connection with higher power, connection with spirit, connection with the universe, and connection with yourself. And when you nurture that connection, the feeling that you have in life is very different from sort of living disconnected and in fear. You know, it's a really painful way to live life. And when we feel more connected to ourselves and to love, our experience of life is so much more beautiful, and our ability to be our unique selves, to bring our unique being, our unique essence into the world and shine, helps lift the frequency of the whole world. I learned that in my 50s when I started Wellco, which was as a result of my own wellness journey. I was turning 50. I felt run down. My skin had changed, my hair had changed, I'd put on weight, I had no sense of vitality, I was sugar addicted, I was sleep deprived, I was coffee addicted. And I just thought, I don't even know myself anymore. Like the old things, the things that I was doing before, the practices that I had, you know, workout practices weren't working anymore. And, you know, I couldn't rely on genetics anymore, or not so much. And I just went, that I don't want to, is this it? Am I just going to be like fat and 50 and feel like crap the whole time? There must be a solution. And so I went and I found an incredible naturopath. And what I realized is that I was malnourished. And I didn't think that you could be malnourished in this day and age. And I had learned that the nutrients in our soils have been overfarmed, that the vitamins and minerals that we usually get from our soils are not present as they used to be in our vegetables or in our food sources. There's pesticides, there's all the herbicides, there's everything, our water systems, our air systems. And I realized that I needed to find a solution. And I'd seen this naturopath, and she started giving me these green supplements. And I started taking them, and within 6 weeks I saw a huge change in my body and in my spirit. You know, I suddenly started feeling alive, vibrant. I lost weight, my hair got better, my skin got better. And I decided that there must be other women going through what I was going through. And so I wanted to share with them, and what became the Super Elixir, which is now our hero product at Wellco.
That's amazing.
And
that's so cool. I love that.
But
story.
the big point of that is unless you're well, it's very difficult for you to shine in your life, to feel empowered in your life if you don't have your well-being. And that's what I learned through cancer, that I will never take my body for granted again, and not cherish how remarkable our bodies are, and look after myself.
And what the reason why that story is even more powerful than what you just said is because you left out the part where you went to the doctor and everyone's like, yeah, you're aging, it's menopause, it is what it is. That's the right, like the fact. Look, I'm 45 and that's what I'm getting now.
Yeah.
And so thinking about where you're going to the doctor, you're feeling like crap, right? Like it's very important to we want to feel good about ourselves. We want to have that confidence.
And my job depended on it.
Right. Oh my God, yes, even worse. God.
But I didn't think I was going through menopause. It didn't even occur to me.
But the fact that, so it didn't occur to you, right? You go to the doctor
and they just said, this is what happens to you when you're 50.
Yeah, like what?
I don't think they dismissed me. What they say is, look, it just is what it is, deal with it. And I was like, well, okay, I'm going to deal with it, but how do I deal with it in the way that is most resonant with me? What can I do to amplify my life? How can I treat the symptoms that I'm facing in a way that really helps me be my best self? Like, I'm not just going to go, oh, well, tough luck, that's just what it is. I was going to find a solution, and that's what I did. And that's what I do with other people. I share it.
You're being very sweet. Obviously, I don't know your doctor, but I've just had so many women that are just like, yeah, it's menopause. It is what it is. Deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that feels very dismissive to me, because it's like, we're really struggling. Like if I was telling you earlier, I'm in perimenopause. And it's like the brain fog, the hot flushes, the irritability, the joint ache, the hot flush. I mean, it feels endless of a list of the things that I'm going through. And to be honest, I just want to be seen.
But you don't have to feel like that, because there are solutions.
Amazing. But the doctor saying, just deal with it. It feels like a dismissive thing. And so where with your story, with everything that you just said of what you do, and the fact that you've started your own freaking company, girl, because of the impact of it. But think about it again, going back to, you had a path. The doctor says to you, just deal with it. Most people go quiet. That's what they do to deal with it. They don't actually figure it out. They go, oh, deal with it means don't complain.
Yeah.
But you didn't actually not just complain, you went and figured it out, you started the company, and now you have a product that actually helps. So I really want to highlight that because, again, there's paths.
Yeah.
And for every woman right now that feels dismissed by their doctor, I hope they feel seen by you.
Yeah.
I hope that your story is a beautiful compass for people to say, you're not alone. You can do something about it. And going back to the empowerment, which and that's what I'm all about. That's so empowering.
Yeah. Thank you.
Of course.
That is the purpose of this book. That is the purpose of Wellco, my nutritional company. The purpose is to help people feel empowered on their journey in life. And I hope to offer tools and wisdoms and solutions and inspiration and encouragement for people on their life journey so that they can live their life to their fullest, so that they can bring their beautiful, unique selves into the world and flourish.
And you do that in spades in your book. I want to do a really quick speed. There's so much in your book, by the way. I've got so much I want to cover. Like, I just have to have you here for a few more hours. But until next time, I want to do a quick speed round with just fun stuff.
Yep, let's do it.
I've idolized you. I've watched you, growing up. And so these are just me, Lisa, the young Lisa geeking out that I'm sitting in front of Elle Macpherson.
So cute.
So number one, what was the original name for your book?
Oh, well, I talk about it. It was going to be called How My Tits Saved My Ass.
Title.
But actually, the original book, the original was Trust.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, but the thing that How My Tits Saved My Ass, I was like, man, I want to buy that book. I would buy that one. We have to re-Photoshop your cover and we'll do a special version of that. Okay. What was it like being in Friends?
Fabulous.
Oh my God.
One of the best experiences of my life. I learned so much. They were so wonderful with me. I mean, I didn't have any experience in, sitcom or live series, but I gave it a go and had a great time and learned a lot along the way.
Oh my God, that is like a dream come true. And then finally, you found yourself one night sitting cross-legged on the floor talking about life and music with Princess Diana. Holy smokes. What do you remember the most about that conversation?
I don't remember the conversation so much as I remember how I remember her spirit and energy. I just remember seeing this very pure being sitting like another girl, just cross-legged, and she was just being her. And I loved that. I thought, gosh, I always thought a princess would have a tiara and she'd have a ball dress on and she wouldn't sit and talk about these things, but she was being unapologetically herself at that given moment. And I was struck by her authenticity at that moment. And I think authenticity is such a beautiful quality in people. And that's what I encourage people in my book, is to find their authentic selves and be it.
Hell yeah. Where can people find you and get your incredible book?
They can find me on Instagram, and my book is available. Oh, let's talk about the audiobook for a second.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, so if you read my book, you can get it on Amazon, Ben Bella Books, at your local bookstore. If you're not a reader and you like audiobooks, I read the book. And it was an extraordinary experience. And there's music to it that my beloved Doyle composed and scored for the whole book. And the music, even though it might sound like a guitar and a piano over beginnings and ends of chapters, all the music is infused with healing frequencies. So gongs, crystal bowls, all the frequencies that help our parasympathetic nervous system relax and just be able to receive information from yourself, receive information for the book. So it's a healing soundtrack and very relaxing and really beautiful. And he sets the scene for each chapter really artistically and artfully. And so you can get the audiobook on Audible. And you can get the book on Amazon.
I love how much you were smiling throughout the whole thing.
That's love.
Yeah, that really is. Guys, you have got to check out her book. We just skimmed the surface of all the amazing stories and tactical takeaways that she has. No matter what you're struggling with, whether it's self-esteem, whether it's standing up for yourself, whether it's a health condition, whether it's in a relationship, she's been through it all and beautifully told the story and woven how she got through them. Not away from them, but through them. So guys, go check out our book. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. If you're not following me, click that subscribe button down there, guys. And until next time, be the hero of your own life. Peace. Guys, if you thought that was fire, then click here right now to learn more about the 7 life lessons that you need to know right now. Often when we're single, we have a voice in our head that make us feel like maybe you're never going to find anybody better than the person that you're with, or the